Mr. Abdelrazik's right as a Canadian citizen. It's in the charter to come home, period. And he has the right to get a travel document so that he can do that. So this is a human rights outrage that they are refusing to honor this covenant that we have with each other as a citizen. Thank you.
Tell me, what is the message to the Harper government?
The Harper government has to immediately follow the law of the land and bring Mr. Abdelrazik home from the Sudan. They keep changing their rationale for the reasons why he cannot come home, and it's abuse. And in fact, it amounts to torture. Forcing someone to live in limbo, never knowing when they're going to be able to come home to their kids, that's limbo, and technically that's a form of torture, psychological torture.
And how do you explain the refusals of the government?
Well, I think as in all the cases of Canadians who've been tortured, there's a lot of skeletons in the closets up there in Ottawa, and CSIS, the RCMP, and the Department of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, they're all complicit, the Justice Department as well. And to have Mr. Abdelrazik come home, he'd be able to tell his story much more widely, and his story is so brutal and so revealing of the real practices of Canadian government agencies when it comes to torture overseas, complicity and direct involvement in torture, that they would just prefer to keep him overseas.
You would think that the Canadian government would have learned from the Aurora case. I guess it's not the case.
No, we're continuing to see Canadians like Mr. Abdelrazik who are in a situation of peril. The Canadian government continues to harass and spy on the members of Canada's Muslim and Arab communities. And we continue to do things like refuse to bring Omar Khadr back from Guantanamo Bay, even though there's been 3 specific court decisions that have been very positive for Mr. Khadr as well. So the Canadian government has to have a real overhaul when it comes to are we or are we not going to be complicit in torture. And right now the Canadian government is so deep in that I don't think they want to have all the truth come out.
No luck this morning at the Ministry of Justice?
Well, we went up there and we asked them to charge us under the Anti-Terrorism Act. If they really believe Mr. Abdelrazik is a threat, first of all, why has he been allowed to stay in the Canadian Embassy for a year? And second of all, why did you say he could come home at some point and then change your mind? So we think that's a very hollow excuse, and we said that. And we said if you really believe in what you're doing, you can charge us. And if you don't believe in what you're doing, then you should withdraw your opposition to the court motion, which is being heard in federal court, to bring him home on Thursday.
This coming Thursday?
This Thursday in Ottawa, there will be a motion calling on the Canadian government to immediately issue him a travel document to have him brought home, because the refusal is a violation of his rights under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms to return to Canada as a Canadian citizen.
His passport didn't became invalid because he spent too many years in Sudan.
Well, because these things expire.
It has expired. Okay.
But even if he did have a passport, they would say, well, he's on the no-fly list. Now, well, there's exceptions to the no-fly list that say, as a citizen, you are allowed to return to your country of citizenship. The British recently did that, and there's no reason why the Canadians can't do that either.
Do you get the feeling that the Harper government painted himself in the corner, as we say in French, because now he has one citizen living in the Canadian Embassy in Khartoum, but he doesn't want to bring him back?
Oh, I think they have painted themselves into a corner, but as we've seen on many issues, the Harper government, especially with respect to human rights, puts them on the back burner. And we're seeing this not only in Mr. Abdelrazik's case, Mr. Omar Khadr's case, Mr. Bashir Maktal's case, who is being held in Ethiopia, Hussein Jalil, who's being held in China. He too was tortured. And the Canadian government seems to be more interested both in economic ties and in keeping friendships between its spy agencies than in standing up for the rights of Canadian citizens.
But in that case, why would you be friend with a state rug like Sudan? In the case of Canada?
Well, there's lots of potential commerce there. And again, spy agencies have arrangements. We know that the CIA works very closely with the Sudanese intelligence apparatus. Perhaps that explains the U.S. government's unwillingness to do anything more firm about the situation in Darfur.
Interesting. Very interesting. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.